Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for the rising sign of Taurus, also known as the ascendant. And this is near and dear to my heart because I am a Taurus rising myself. So I can give a first-hand account, at least from my point of view, of what it means. But first we have to define what the rising sign is. And this has been something that has kind of aggravated me over the years. I remember years ago, it could be close to 30 years ago, checking out a book from the library about the rising sign specifically. It was all about the rising sign, and still not being convinced that it really meant much of anything. Usually, if you want to keep it pretty superficial, you can say, well, a lot of the physical characteristics, because the rising sign is the cusp of the first house of self. And so it kind of informs us of, sometimes it can be also, I feel, showing the atmosphere when the person came into this reality in their family. Because the family is the first place you go to when you come into this lifetime, right? So they are going to be your first influence. And depending on what is going on at that time, that will give you a sense of things. And so I've kind of cobbled together from different sources and my own self a working definition of what the rising sign is. And I would say that it looks at your appearance, it looks at your sense of personal style, so how you dress, but even that may have a limited time span, and I'll talk about that in a second. And how you grew up, at least for some portion of the time, and this could give you that conditioning, and how you fit into your family of origin, like what did you have to do to fit into it? And for somebody like me who has a sun in Sagittarius, the rising sign of Taurus is a degree, it's like 150 degrees apart. It's known as a conjunction. So it's a very awkward aspect. And this means that the two signs really have nothing in common, okay? And yet, I know a couple where one is a Taurus and one is a Sagittarian. So it's not like you're doomed if you're in a relationship like that, but it's just that there is so much difference between those two signs. So if you have them as the sun and the rising sign, it can feel very strange, and you can give off very contradictory vibes that are not really true to you, because the rising sign is going to be how you project yourself to other people. And when they get to know you, they may say, oh, wow, I thought she was this way, but she's actually this way. Now, looking at it from the Taurus point of view, when we think of Taurus, Taurus is ruled by Venus, as is the sign Libra. So if you have Taurus rising, you have your ruler as Venus. And this is what your ruler is. The ruler of the rising sign is your ruler. And so you will tend to have those qualities that connect to Venus, of being gracious, being charming. Physical beauty can be present with both Taurus and Libra rising people. With Taurus, though, unlike Libra, there's more of an earthy quality to the person, where they come across as more sensual than, when we say a woman is beautiful, she can have kind of a cold beauty. Think of Catherine Deneuve or Gwyneth Paltrow, and I think those are both Librans, okay? People, they have a beautiful face, they may be elegant, but they're not, you don't look at them and say, wow, they're so sexy in that kind of carnal sense. With Taurus, you can sometimes really feel that. And so it's very interesting for me because when I was younger, I used to dress in a very revealing way. showing off my body. And it was kind of funny because I would get attention from men, but then I was like in my head. I wasn't really, there was a disconnect. And so if you're the kind of person who is like that, and you may have Taurus rising, maybe your sun sign is Libra, or maybe it's Gemini, and you are dressing in a sexy manner, and then you may even get offended. I was thinking of that singer Jewel, and I think she's a Gemini. I don't know what her rising sign is, but I remember she said to Bob Dylan, stop staring at my boobs or something. And she had this, thing that was like, you couldn't miss them, and that's the kind of mentality that some people may get into, where they are unconsciously being sexy and then chastising people for being attracted to their physical appearance. So there has to be an integration that occurs. If you're a sun sign that we do not consider to really embrace, like an Aquarian, where they're more in their head and they're not really, sometimes the air signs can actually forget to eat, or they're very much sometimes disconnected from their body. And Taurus is all about the good things in life, including food. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people with a prominent Taurus who are foodies, and meaning that they love to cook, but they also love quality ingredients, and they'll go out of their way. I mean, that's something that is true for me. And I always kind of like laugh at myself because I'm like on Amazon. Okay, I got to get my organic raw vanilla beans, and I'm looking at the price, and they've, and it's like, but I have to have it, I have to have like the best of everything when it comes to food. They have this real love of the good life. And this gives somebody with Taurus rising, or even Taurus sun, but we're talking about the image of being rather self-indulgent, okay? And the truth is that you're just a creature of the senses, and, embrace that part of you, but you don't have to wallow in it and act like it's the only part of you. If you have a sun sign that is an earth sign as well, like a Capricorn, or you could have a Taurus sun sign or Virgo. I don't know so much about Virgo, but even a Virgo, you're going to have that sense of alignment with this aspect. So it's not going to be foreign to you. And so it's really important that you understand why you are the way that you are, but that you don't necessarily become indulgent because there is that tendency with a prominent Taurus. And as a rising sign, this can come from your childhood conditioning. You may have come from a family where, it was encouraged to care about material things. Maybe you were around people who, if they weren't materialistic in terms of being greedy, the word materialism doesn't have to just be somebody who's greedy, but just somebody who's overly concerned with the physical dimension. Like they don't see that we are multidimensional beings. They really are so focused on their bodies, food, their work, their money. And so there's a limited capacity for understanding something more. And because of this, there has to be this willingness to not just stay in this place. That's what I'm getting at. And with somebody who has, like me, Sagittarius sun and then Taurus rising, there can be like a conflict of like, which direction should I go in? But it almost can become like rejecting everything that the Taurus energy stands for, which is not integration. The other thing, too, is that I read somewhere that the influence of the rising sign is lessened after the age of 30. So I connect it to the first Saturn return, and therefore you may find that as you get older, you don't dress the same. I don't dress in a provocative manner anymore. I'm not that interested in appearance in general anymore, and I used to be totally into it, okay? And this is in alignment with what a Venus-ruled person would be very into their appearance, to the clothes they're wearing, and it can become obsessive if the person is not careful. And hopefully, as you get older, you will see an evolution where you leave behind some of these influences so they're not front and center. But there may always be that little thing that is part of your nature, because I know for me that for sure I am somebody that I think that's the only fixed. Well, I do have Venus and Aquarius, but having a fixed rising sign can mean that you do things, you like to do things in a predictable way. There's a certain habitual tendencies with you. I have a lot of mutable signs, but I have certain things I do. I love soft clothing because Taurus likes things that are very comfortable. They like to be comfortable. Taurus does not like to be rushed. So a Taurus rising person, there's probably nothing that irritates them more is that somebody tries to get them to do something before they want to do it. Taurus rising can give the appearance of being very calm. And I think I have had more than one person say this to me, but I remember a friend of mine, she said, "You are just so peaceful, you're so calm." And I said, "No, I'm not. I really am not. I'm really high strung." But apparently, because that is the thing that emanates from me, when people see me, that can give them that impression. But that is a perfect example of how you don't even have to be fake, where you just naturally give off these calm vibes, but you may be inside, you may be totally anxious or what have you. And so that was funny when she said that to me, because I did not resonate with that. But now I kind of have, when, knowing that this is part of Taurus, I've kind of embraced it a lot and tried to become what other people see me as. And Taurus rising is patient. I think I said that they don't like to be rushed, but also they're not going to push other people usually. Obviously, this all depends on other aspects, but usually people with Taurus rising can wait for things to happen, and they are very peaceful in the moment. And this is going along with this idea of being laid back and just being pleasure-oriented, so that the person wants to have a comfortable life. They don't want to be in a frenzy. One thing that I would say for Taurus rising is to make sure that you exercise, that you move. The tendency can be to become stagnant, and this is, again, due to the very luxuriating behavior that they exhibit. But of course, that can be taken to the extreme, and you can, quickly go into couch potato mode if you're not careful. So the best kind of thing for a Taurus person to do would probably be to take a walk in a beautiful area. that has a lot of trees where you can connect to the green. I always connect the color green to Taurus. And I think the Taurus stone is emerald or something like that. And you think Taurus is the springtime, May, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, I guess. But it is connected to, I think, green. And money is green, too, so that it works out very well. Taurus has a long neck, usually, and it's ruled by the neck. So usually a Taurus rising person may have a pleasing voice, and they may be a good singer even. And Jim Morrison was he a moon in... He had a moon. There was somebody who had Taurus rising, though. Oh, you know who had Taurus rising was John Lennon. Yeah, Jim Morrison had the moon in Taurus. But any prominent position, including the sun in Taurus, obviously, too, can be good for singing. With the rising sign, a person may like to wear scarves. They like to kind of decorate their necks, perhaps. And definitely showing off the body. So somebody with Taurus rising, by the way, Miley Cyrus has Taurus rising, which was kind of funny when I found that one out. But there's it's interesting. I'm trying to think because I believe that Miley Cyrus really patterned herself after Britney Spears, and they're both Sagittarians. But I believe that Britney has Libra rising. And if you think about Britney, even though she kind of built her career on sexuality, there was always kind of like, if you want to call it classy, a kind of a classiness to her, sexual displays. Like when she did Baby One More Time, she wore like a little Catholic girls thing, and it was just kind of like cutesy but sexy at the same time. Miley it was much more crude and much more in your face, and that is Taurus rising. That is the difference between Taurus and Libra, even though they're both ruled by Venus. The fact that Taurus is an earth sign will usually indicate that the person, and I'm going to say a woman because of, when we think of dressing in a sexy manner, that the woman will display herself in a much more in-your-face type of dress, which could be like, wearing, very low cut, wearing a mini skirt or very tight pants, whatever, you know how it goes. And it's like, but it's not trying to be anything that other than that. It's really like saying, yeah, I believe in being a sexy person, and they're not trying to kind of hide that fact and make it seem other than what it is, because Taurus is very comfortable with sexuality and sees it as a natural thing. So it stands to reason that they would dress in a manner that is very earthy. But there just can be this appreciation of fine fabrics, fine food, and fine people too, like being attracted to somebody because of their physical appearance. And so I think I've covered just about everything. Remember that this is the facade in a way. It's not going to be really who they are. And once you get to know the person, it's going to be a lot different. Now, if you happen to be this, I'm sure most of the people listening to this are actually going to be of this rising sign. If you have a sun sign that is a water sign, then, and let's say you're a woman, you're really going to probably even get married young or want to, have a family young, because the water signs tend to be nesters. They tend to like and be old-fashioned, more traditional. I consider Taurus to be a more conservative sign, and you can point out outliers, but I think of, in general, the earth and water signs are more traditional and the tried and true. So also, one thing that's kind of a cute little quirk is that a lot of times you'll see with fixed signs as the rising sign that they tend to wear the same colors, have the same look or thing, even long into the future. So if you've ever seen a lady who might be like in her 70s now and she has a beehive haircut, or like very thick eyeliner and stuff like that, she may be dressing the way she did when she was 15 years old 60 years ago, and she was trying to emulate Elizabeth Taylor in Cleopatra in the early 60s or whenever that came out. Maybe they came out in the 50s, I don't know. But you will see people when you're out and about who look like they're stuck in the 80s, the 70s, 60s, whatever. And that's because they maintain that look. The fixed signs don't really like to change. So there's always something that remains constant with them. And for a fixed rising sign, it will be their appearance a lot of times. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this, Taurus rising. Take care. Bye.